Hello everyone, welcome to this walkthrough of the 1.6 release of the FixedIT Data Agent. As you probably know, the FixedIT Data Agent is an edge application that you run directly inside your Axis camera, and it's used to manage your scripts, manage the environment your script runs in, and allow a powerful framework to use in your script so that you can write more efficient scripts with less time that are more robust and more secure. And as you can see here on the IP address, it's running in my Axis camera, same IP address as the Axis camera's own user interface. So you find the Data Agent application under Apps. And here we see the overview page. This looks similar to what it did in the last release. And the logs page also looks like it did in the 1.5 release. But when we go to the configuration page, we see that we now have a variables page here. And this allows for an easier way to configure environment variables and secrets for your scripts. So walking through the different cards that we have here, we have some basic environment variables like the verbose debug logging mode that you can now easily enable. These are used by the bundled configuration files, but you can also use them in your own configuration files. And you can hover the question mark here to see an explanation of what this parameter is, what environment variables it sets, and how it is recommended to use it. And then we have extra Telegraf variables. So this will be empty when you install the application in your device. This is for adding custom variables that you want to use in your own scripts. So if I want to add a new variable, I just click the plus icon and I select my own variable, and I can set a value for it. And now we see it appearing here. And if I don't want it anymore, I can remove it. Or if I want to edit the value of it, I can of course do that. And we have the same for Telegraf secrets. So this is quite similar. The difference is that you would typically store your passwords in the Telegraf secrets. And in the back end, these are handled by the OS keychain, so it's a secure way of storing the parameters. And in your Telegraf configuration files, you can only access this in specific fields. So typically the password inputs and stuff like that. So the benefit with that is that it greatly reduces the risk of accidentally leaking your secrets into the logs, for example. And of course the secrets are not visible in the user interface or the APIs of the application. But otherwise it's similarly, I just create my variable here, or my secret. And one new thing you can do in this release of the Data Agent is that you can click the obfuscate for a remote file. So if you're used to working with Telegraf, you know that the remote file plugin in Telegraf is only accepting rclone obfuscated passwords. So for example, if you want to upload to an SFTP server or to Amazon Web Services S3, this is the output plugin that you would use to facilitate that. And if you use that plugin, then you should obfuscate your password like this so that the plugin is happy with the format of the password. And doing that is now just clicking this checkbox before you save it, and the Data Agent will automatically obfuscate the password before saving it to the backend. We also have Apex credentials, and these are not used by the bundled configurations, but it's common to use Apex credentials for making network requests on this device or other devices in your own scripts. So this is just a convenience wrapper where you can set the username and password here and then save it and make use of them as environment variables. We have the YAU type and the YAU and type tag. So these variables are used in the bundled tags.conf configuration to tag all your messages with which device they came from. So it's very useful if you want to use a map plugin, for example, to show from where a message arrived. And the type tag can be used to describe what kind of installation it is. Is it a surveillance installation? Is it a people counting installation? Is it some kind of analytics application, and so forth? And you may, of course, use those in your own scripts too. We encourage you to do that to get a good scalable infrastructure up already from the start. And then we have some health monitoring variables. Here you can set the variables that are used by the bundled health monitoring. So the default values are good to use from the start, but if you have an installation without internet connectivity, for example, if you run your own DNS servers in an enterprise environment, then you probably want to monitor the connection to those DNS servers instead, so then you can change the values here. And these will be used by the built-in configuration files. And the same for InfluxDB. The built-in configuration files will send data to InfluxDB. If you don't want to do that, you can just have it disabled. But if you want to use the InfluxDB output plugin to send data to an InfluxDB database and visualize it with, for example, Grafana, then this is where you would input the credentials and the connection information about that database. So moving on to the Files tab. Here we can see that I have disabled the built-in configuration files. I have a few manual uploaded configuration files, which I can delete. And I have a few helper files. So the first thing that is new in this interface is that we have a download button. So for example, I mentioned this tags configuration that tags your messages with the geographical information, but also static information about the camera that the data agent sets automatically, such as the device type and information about what firmware is running in it. But also information about what version of the data agent is running. So perhaps you want to add these tags also to your own metrics that you're producing in your own configuration scripts. So the new thing then is that I can just click this download button and this download the tags.conf file, and now I can upload it either as it is, or of course I can edit it on my computer before uploading it if I want to do that. And of course I can also use the built-in editor in the web interface that we added in the previous release of the data agent. The second thing that is new is that when uploading helper files, we get an option to make the helper files secret. So let's say that I have a certificate key file that I'm going to upload, and I want to protect this so it can't be read from the user interface. Then I will make this a secret, and instead of appearing with helper files, it will appear in secret helper files, and it will be marked in red to indicate this. So the first thing that you see is that on regular helper files, we can expand them to see the content of them, but on a secret helper file, there's no way to access the content of this file from the user interface or from the APIs of the application. But we also do scrubbing in the logs to prevent you from accidentally leaking the information of it. And we also see that it's stored in another directory. And the difference with this directory is that we ensure that we have strict permissions preventing other user accounts in the cameras to read these files. And the last thing that we have changed here in the interface is to simplify a little bit with the paths to the files. So we removed some file paths that aren't really needed, that you don't need to know about. And for the helper files where you do need to know the path to the file to use them in your own scripts, we have exposed them as the environment variable that we encourage you to use instead. So this was all the new features that are visually apparent in the FixedIT Data Agent. Of course, we have done improvements in the backend too. We have built a lot of libraries using the latest Windows 39 version of Telegraf, which comes with some new cool features. So yeah, a lot of new cool things in the FixedIT Data Agent, and subscribe to our channels to see new videos about what you can do with the Data Agent and your Access cameras.